Hi everyone, welcome back to another episode of Travel, Explore, Celebrate Life. After a brief break where both of us have been traveling, we are back and now every week you'll get episodes of Travel, Explore, Celebrate Life. As you may have seen, the topic today is Sydney. We are going down under and we are going to one of the most popular cities of Australia. Now, if you think about Sydney, there are many things that are unique. One is the most iconic thing that comes to your mind when you think about Sydney is the Sydney Opera House, a UNESCO World Heritage Site. Even if you look at Veena World's stickers, which you can find at all our branches, we have this thing where we create stickers of two monuments every month. And this month is actually a sticker of the Sydney Opera House. Now, the Sydney Opera House is the symbol of Sydney. Along with that, there is the Sydney Harbour Bridge, which is often named the coat hanger because it gives you an impression of an actual coat hanger. It is the world's widest long span bridge when it was constructed in 1932. It was, not anymore, but it is definitely an icon. Now, when I talk about the Sydney Harbour Bridge and the Sydney Opera House, one thing I cannot leave out is the Sydney New Year's Eve's fireworks. Known globally for a city that welcomes the new year, or the first major city to welcome the new year every year, well, the fireworks are a spectacle in itself. Along with that, Sydney has many, many things. So we are going to talk about Sydney, and who else to talk about Sydney with than Sunila? Because Sunila has been to Australia a number of times. Even though I have lived in Australia, I think Sunila has been to Australia more times than I have. So Sunila, I'm happy that we've started Travel, Explore, Celebrate Life. I can call it season 2, season 3. We've done more than 100 episodes now. Sydney is a good place to start. Now, I have two questions to start off with. Okay.
Mhm.
How many times have you been to Sydney? And apart from the Opera House and the Harbour Bridge, tell me three things that have stuck with you from all of these trips.
Yes, Neil, it's so good to be back together. And yeah, I really enjoy these Travel, Explore, Celebrate Life episodes that we do together. It's a lot of fun. Yes, we are back in office and we are recording now. So good questions to start with. And one of my favorite cities in the world. And how many times have I been there? I guess it's more than 10 times at least. I stopped counting after some time. There was a point where I was in Australia 3 times a year. So that was a little, it just seems crazy, but it was a lot of fun. Of course, when I was going there, there were different reasons to go to Australia and different seasons as well, that you can think of. So yeah, I was traveling for work mostly, but also, we launched a few of those different tours to Australia when
Yeah.
the road trips, we took all of that. And because it was different, you had to first make sure that it's possible to do it right. So there was a time where I went in, actually, none of this has been a holiday ever. Can you believe it? In all the trips that I've been to Australia, I have to still go and take that one holiday in Australia. It's always been work, but then travel and work go together for us. So that's how it works. There have been different conferences, different events that we've attended where we met people who come and showcase different things to do in Australia and then meet them. And that's how our programs and our tours are enhanced as well. And then along with that, I was lucky enough to do a few road trips. So that was really fun for me. So things that stood out for me, did you mention only Sydney or Australia?
Well, I would say only Sydney. Let's focus on
Okay.
Sydney for this one.
Okay, so you said not to mention the Opera House or the Harbour Bridge, but I am still going to do that because climbing on top of the Sydney Bridge climb, as it is known, is one
Mhm.
of the really special things. And I remember the first time I did it, I was all, with adrenaline pumping and I was really all excited. And once you're on top, you realize it's not that difficult. It just looks more difficult than it is, and you can actually stand there and take in the view. So it feels very, very, very special. I remember there was a time where Tourism Australia had even arranged a breakfast on the bridge. So there was a breakfast meeting where all the traffic was stopped, all the
Wow.
cars were stopped, and there were like tables laid out, and you had a breakfast meeting on the bridge. So that was something which you cannot repeat again. I think it was a one-off, really special thing. But yes, what everyone else can do on their next trip to Sydney is definitely do the bridge climb and climb up onto the harbour and then take in the views. So I think with Sydney, the other thing really is a cruise, is a harbor cruise. Even though it sounds like everybody and anybody can do it, and it's quite common, I would say try and do it at night. And for me, what stood out again, Neil, was that it happened to be a full moon night. So can you imagine that in the night, as you're cruising on the harbor and you reach the opera house, and you have the like all lights off. I think they did it on purpose, and just the moonlight shining on the opera house, and you're cruising in the harbor. So that was really special. Like all of Darling Harbor, I just love that place. There's so many restaurants there. There are, attractions out there. You have the SEA Aquarium, you have all other attractions, and so many new hotels around the area. But even just to go there for a walk in the morning or a walk in the evening is special. But cruising in the harbor is something I cannot forget. It was very, very, very special. And I would say the third thing really about Sydney, though, Australia, most of the cities, generally people like to eat early. They like their dinners really
Yeah.
early. And you can, but one of the nice things to do is to walk around the rocks area. And
Hmm.
for me, that was really special because the rocks has a history as well. And even in winter, like July, June, July, the winter is coming for Australia. And I was there, and the whole place was lit up with these little tiny fairy lights, and it's a very different vibe to the rest of Sydney with the whole sea and the surf and sun. So just being around the rocks area, going to different places, which offer different kinds of drinks and cocktails and beer and everything, and then follow it up with meals everywhere. So I think food in Australia is always very special. So these three things are really special for me in Sydney. I still have to
Awesome.
go for a holiday, so maybe my list will change after that.
Oh, yeah, definitely, because there's so much to do that you can do. Well, now that we've got the ball rolling, today we wanted to focus on something which is quite a unique experience in Sydney during the months of May and June every year. And I think not many know about this.
Mhm.
And but if you have seen the title of the episode, it is What is Vivid Sydney? So one thing I want to really clarify is that Vivid Sydney is not just like a word that they've attached to Sydney to make it sound good. It is actually a thing. It is actually an experience. So, Sunila, let's start by asking you, like, what is Vivid Sydney?
So Vivid Sydney is this amazing festival that the city puts up. It's you can put well to call it in a very simple way, it's like a light show that the city puts up. So there's a lot of light installations everywhere, and the whole city is illuminated in many beautiful ways. So it's not just lights, it's music, it's food, and it is lights everywhere. So it's a festival of Sydney. And Neil, if you want to think of how is it or what is it, it's been voted Australia's best tourism event 2013, 2014, 2015, 2017,
Oh,
18, and
wow.
19. So it's something you should not miss if you're definitely going to Australia this May or June. Try to time your holidays around that time. So it's 24th May to 15th June is the official timing. This year's theme is very interesting. It's called humanity. And of
Okay.
course, I think that's what all of us need. So it's all about, growth as a person and reflection about what we are as humans and all of that. And they bring out this core concept is then brought out by different lights that illuminate all these beautiful monuments. So it's a very different Sydney by day. And then with Vivid Sydney at night, the same Sydney turns into something that is absolutely stunning. So it's recognized by the International Festival and Events Association. So it is an international festival, is what we can say. So yeah, that's something that definitely you should visit if you're going to Australia anytime between May and June. So 24th May to 15th June, try to be in Sydney and try to catch up on this beautiful festival because you'll have a great time. It's like spending an amazing evening with seeing all these installations, seeing the light, seeing the illumination. Music is going on. There are different food stalls and a lot of things to do. So definitely something to catch up.
So, all in all, in my reading at least, I figured that Vivid Sydney is about three things. One is that it's about the lights,
Mhm.
second one is about the music,
Yeah.
and the third one is about the food. And as I was researching, I found out that like you can really talk about it as a festival where we go for festivals over a weekend, but this is actually 2 months long, and every evening there is something or the other that's there. First question. Is it something that I have to pay for, or is it free?
So the best part about Vivid City is that almost all of it is free. Like you
Okay.
can walk around the whole area. Well, of course, if the food and things, you will pay for that. There would be some music events that you have to pay for, and some of the illuminated events that you pay for. But otherwise, it's like a celebration of the city. So it's really celebrating Sydney and for everyone to enjoy. So there is no age, nothing. You can just enjoy all of it. There are a few exhibits that you have to pay for. So, for example, there is something called the Lightscape, which will run at the Royal Botanic Garden of Sydney. And
Mhm.
for that, you have to book and pay. There are certain events where it may be free, but still they would recommend you pre-booking it simply because it's so popular that, it's better that if you really, really want to be there, then pay for it. But otherwise, you can walk around the city and just enjoy and explore the whole city where you look at something in the day and then you're going back and looking at how beautiful it's looking at night. So it'll involve a lot of walking. So make sure you have good walking shoes, and the city is really walkable anyways. So there would be different areas. So there will be some different things at the Darling Harbour. There would be different things at the Sydney Tower, at Barangaroo, at different places in the city. You will see different things. So yeah, you can stay there for 2, 3 nights and do something different every night.
So, moving away from Vivid Sydney for just a moment,
Mhm.
what is Darling Harbour? Like, I want to clarify that also, because sometimes people think Darling Harbour is that place where there are restaurants just from where you can see the Sydney Harbour Bridge, or, where the Opera House is. Is that really Darling Harbour? What really is Darling Harbour? Because people do get confused here, and I thought, like, I might as well ask you after 10 trips, you would have a better
So
answer for
in
that.
some ways, Darling Harbour is like the center of the city, though not geographically the center, but it's like the entertainment and the cultural center. Or to position yourself and to kind of see where you are, you can think of the Darling Harbour. There are a lot of restaurants around, and it is the place where a lot of cruises would leave as well. So if you're taking any boat cruise or you're taking a different cruise in Sydney, this is the place where it would be docked, or this is where you would go to take a boat cruise to be there. It is the place where you would go to have a beautiful evening. It would
Mhm.
again be the place where you would have the fireworks going on, for the New Year's as well.
Mhm.
So that's something where you should be there. If you want to stay in an area that you want to enjoy by evening as well, and just to soak in the city without really even like I remember booking someone for a individual, a private holiday, and he said, I don't even want to get out of the room, but I want to make sure that I'm in Sydney. Then Darling Harbour is the place that you would
Yeah.
be. There are a lot of attractions here, and with every tour of Veena World, of course, we go to Darling Harbour because we visit the aquarium out there. There is, other attractions that you would see out there. You'll see if you want to experience the local life and feel what it is, a lot of people would come here and be walking in the day, jogging in the morning. People in Australia in general really love to stay fit. So you'll see all of that out there. There is a Chinese Garden of Friendship out here, which you can take. A lot of the water taxis in Sydney would take off from here. You have the National Maritime Museum here, Captain Cook Cruises and the Showboat Cruises, which also has, like a cabaret on board. All of that would be docking at Darling Harbour, and they take off from Darling Harbour. So there are a lot of hotels there. There are restaurants there. There is attraction. There is shopping and a convention center. Everything is around Darling Harbour. And it's not too far. From there, you can always visit Opera House and the other places. So this is something definitely that you can't miss and you would want to be there. If you're there, I would suggest spending at least one evening out there and then staying back there and having a meal at one of the nicer restaurants. I mean, all are nice, really, in Darling Harbour. Because, Neil, like in Australia, you've lived there. There's this whole concept of having a restaurant where you're seated indoors and then you can also sit outside. And for
Yeah.
me, sitting out there in the evening in open air, bar hopping, or just enjoying the restaurant and enjoying the vibe, it's amazing. So yeah, that is Darling Harbour.
While you were talking about it, I just went to our tour status page, and one of our tours is currently in Sydney, and our tour manager Vivek Garg is probably enjoying the Sydney cricket ground with
Oh, nice.
all of our guests. So let's come back to Vivid Sydney. Okay. Now, of course, when you talk about food, there'll be many food counters and food stalls and everything, and that is there. When it comes to music, there'll be music, different types of music. You can go for that and you can enjoy it in the evening. One of the good things is that during the months of May and June, it's not yet too cold,
Yeah.
and it's very nice to stroll around. Now let's talk about the lights, right?
Mm-hmm.
The light aspect.
Main attraction.
You mentioned that Vivid Sydney's main attraction is the lights, or
Mhm.
are the lights.
Yeah.
Tell me about one of these installations if you can.
Yeah, I'd like to talk about more than one actually, because
Okay.
that is the main attraction out there. And I think, Neil, let's start with something we can't miss when we talk of Sydney or Australia, which is the Opera House.
Mm-hmm.
So the installations are commissioned by different people. So commissioned, by the Sydney Opera House and New South Wales, which is the state of Sydney. Like Sydney is the capital of New South Wales. And this year, keeping in mind 2024 and the whole humanity theme and all of that, it's really quite amazing because there is a story to everything. And this year for the Sydney Opera House, they are taking a mythological story of the Roman poet Ovid's story of Narcissus, where people fall in love with themselves or something. He fell in love with himself, and they've so this artist Julia Gutman, she's kind of taken all the fabric that was donated and created a patchwork out of it and made it digital. So you will see the story of Narcissus in a digital patchwork thing on the Sydney Opera House. So when you're looking at the Opera House, it will look like as if there is fabric on it, but actually it's just a
Hmm.
digital projection, and it is telling you a story, which is the story of Narcissus. So you have mythology out there. So it's called Eco. The whole thing animation that is going to be projected onwards is Eco, and it's a digital translation of patchworks. So it's amazing how a story gets translated onto the opera house. So by day, you will see the opera house with all its white tiles that we often see. And by day, you can, like our tours go, I'm sure Vivek has completed it. Vivek Garg must have taken our people inside to see the opera house from inside with a guide. So by day, you're actually visiting the opera house from inside. And by evening, you can come out and see the opera house in a different light, as we can say. You'll have the story of Narcissus up there, which is curated by Julia Gutman. So that is one. That is something
Mm-hmm.
that is happening there. The other thing I would like to talk about is one which you can't miss if you're walking in and around that area, is a global rainbow. So this is going to be projected off the Sydney Tower. And, if you've been to the Sydney Tower, or if you're in Sydney, you would definitely visit. The Sydney Tower, basically, you can see it from anywhere that you're there. And from the Sydney Tower Eye, there will be this big spectrum of light which will be projected
Mm-hmm.
the night sky. And Neil, this would start by 6 p.m. is what when they start with the Vivid Sydney, and it goes on till 10:45. So it's like welcoming winter in a way. If you see most of the cities around the world, like when you see London, you have the Christmas lights coming on, which is famous out there, and all the other cities. It's like when it's dark, let's have some light installations and make things more cheery and festive. So the global rainbow is also something like that. And it's going to be projected out from the Sydney Tower Eye for up to 40 kilometers. So the whole point is inclusivity and bringing people all in. One of the projects, like when we decided to do this, I went up and checked, and unfortunately, this year I'm not going to be in Australia, so I'm going to miss this. But one of the projects is something I really like the whole idea. It's beautiful. It's called a chair wave. And
Okay.
this is a project, I think, that comes from the Netherlands. And what they've done, Neil, is nothing but, there are these vertical installations. And then as you approach that, it turns into a chair. So they're basically chairs which are, like, if you can say, which are chairs that can be stocked on top of each other. But chairs are in a certain line and they are folded up. So when
Mm-hmm.
you approach the chair, it opens up, it lights up, and it opens into a chair. So you can go sit on it. And the whole concept is that talk to strangers, get to know each other. And when you go and sit on it, the chair next to you also turns into a chair. So something that was that also opens up, inviting, strangers to come in and sit next to you. And the whole idea is that you can talk to people when you're there. So the whole idea is about humanity in a way, and getting there. So there are many such different installations all through Sydney. You can go to different places and see all of this, in different forms. Like somewhere there's a Japanese installation, in other places there are different things that you'll be able to go and see. So yeah, these were a few examples of what you can see.
So,
Yeah.
you mentioned the Japanese installation. It is
Mm.
called the Hikarakuyo, and it is in
Yeah.
Darling Harbor.
Right.
And I mean, I love Japan. So when we were researching for the episode, I was like, okay, like, I'm going to hold on to this. So it's actually an exhibition which is like an 8-minute show. And that 8-minute show is a holographic light and laser show
Mhm.
where it uses a Japanese concept which is about the transient beauty of life, and it uses flowers and falling leaves as a metaphor to display this transient beauty of life. So one thing I figured that all of these light shows have a country that they represent. So there is another light show that is happening somewhere which is representing Spain. Then there is something about Australia where there is a light show that is describing the life of Bondi as you move from the road to the beach to the uh, shallow waters and into the ocean. So that's also pretty cool. So I guess Vivid Sydney is something that you can't probably see through pictures. Whoever I have spoken to has always told me that the pictures don't do justice, because it's about being there, embracing that particular exhibit that you'll see. And it may be the light, you may be there for the music, or you may be there for the food. But more so, if I it was me, I would go for all three, because all three are
Was
indeed beautiful. Now, while we are there, okay, what are some things that you recommend doing, like as road trips or as excursions from Sydney?
Yeah, Neil. So of course, when you're reaching Sydney, you would want to explore around a little bit more. And the entire state of New South Wales gives you a lot of options to do that. And you can do a lot of weekend trips as well, or you could actually do a whole road trip. Like Hunter Valley. If you're into wine, then definitely I would say that you can go down to Hunter Valley and even stay there. There's a beautiful garden out there that you can, a fairy tale garden that you can visit. There is the entire winery as well, so you can explore all of that. The coastal drives are simply amazing. So whether you choose to go north or south, you'll have something beautiful both ways. And these are some of Australia's best drives that you can see. Speaking of drives, one of the installations at Vivid Sydney is based on this, and it's quite surreal. It's got these robots and then humans with one eye and all of that, but it is a homage to the beautiful road trips and the drives that you can do in and around Sydney, in and around Australia as well. So Central Coast is something that you can experience. You can experience going up the North Coast towards Byron Bay and then heading up into Queensland as well. Or you can go down south and then you can do the Kiyama Blowhole. You can go to Wollongong and then go beyond into towards Melbourne and towards the Great Ocean Road as well. Of course, those would be really long trips, but then if you have the time, that's something very easy to do. If you want to go up to the mountains and you want a really cool holiday, then you can go to the Blue Mountains because they would be pretty cool by that time. So that is again something that definitely you can explore. If you want something very, very upmarket, then you can go to an island called the Lord Howe Island. You have to
Mhm.
go there by ferry or by helicopter or something. So again, that's something that you can definitely do. So Port Stephens is another place that I would say you can go in because that has some of the biggest sand dunes and the biggest moving sand dunes. So, sandboarding, dolphin watching, swimming with the dolphins, all of these activities can be done there. So definitely, I would say that, you can easily spend, I don't know, even like a week or 2 weeks out there going to different places and seeing different things. So yeah, step out of Sydney, go out there for the weekend. And actually, that might be a nice thing. because the weekends are going to be more popular at the Light Festival. So if you take
Mhm.
that weekend out of Sydney, do something else, and then visit the Vivid Sydney during the weekdays, then it won't be too crowded and you'll really
Yeah.
have a great time.
Awesome. Well, and if you're adventurous, you could probably go to the main railway station in Sydney and hop onto the Indian Pacific. That will
Yeah.
take you all the way to Perth, and that is one of the longest train journeys in the world, is what they call it. Now, of course, Sydney or Australia has now become a multi-visit destination, because Australia, to most visitors, gives you a multi-entry, multi-year visa. So we are seeing like what Australia was back in the day 15 years ago, where people used to be like, oh, if we are going there, we are going to do Australia and New Zealand together. Like you
Mm.
rightly said, we are now you can just go to Sydney, spend 7 days, come back, because there are direct flights from Bangalore, there are direct flights from Delhi, there is a direct flight to Melbourne from Mumbai, and then we have all of our Southeast Asian carriers like Thai Airways, Singapore Airlines, Malaysia Airlines that are taking us to Australia in a very easy manner, along with Air India and Qantas, of course. So that's a great thing. So, do you think we've missed out anything when we talk about Sydney or Vivid Sydney?
I think we can never talk enough either about Vivid Sydney or Sydney, but I think this has been good. And of course, those who are interested can go in and check out what other things are at Vivid Sydney. I would say choose what you want to do. Like, for example, there's even a booth that if you go and stand in front of it, whatever comes in front of it, so it's AI powered. And it will give you a poem based on whatever it sees, whatever you put. So if you go and stand in front of it, it'll probably make a poem on you. So there are
Mhm.
like a lot of these funny and interesting things that you can do. There would be, of course, it depends. If you're going with children and if you are a family, you can choose to do more things like that. So yes, we can get into that. If you're on a romantic break, you can choose to do a few things that would be more suited to that. Or if you're on a group tour, like our tours are, then of course you get a taste of that, but you still get to do a lot other things along with that. So I would say choose what is it that you really want to achieve when you're on your holiday out there, or maybe you're visiting friends and relatives and you can, spend a really nice time with your friends out there in the evening. So you can really tailor it based on what it is that you want to do. And Sydney, and especially during Vivid Sydney, it offers you so much more. I'm sure everyone who's visiting will be posting their photos by day and photos by night, and then we will be able to see everything that is amazing about the city.
Awesome. So, listeners, that was Vivid Sydney, one of the most popular cities in Australia, one of the cities that you will definitely tick off on your first trip to Australia, or your second, third, fourth trip, whatever it may be. But that's it from us on Travel Explore Celebrate Life. I would like to say we are back, and more fun episodes coming up. In a couple of weeks, you'll hear from us about an interesting festival in Thailand. So stay tuned for that. And next week is about an interesting experience within Incredible India. So have a good one. As we always say at Veena World, keep celebrating life and have an amazing week ahead. Bye bye.
Bye.